Hey guys, so glad you're back. Behavior Strategies for Class here. And today we're talking about behavior trends from last year, 2024. Is there any changes to these behaviors? Well, according to rethinked.com, 25% of teachers now face daily behavior interruptions. More than 70% of teachers report a recent increase in disruptive behaviors. And 80% of educators believe behaviors have increased and worsened since the pandemic, with frequent tantrums, defiance, and emotional outbursts. And I know this probably isn't anything really new for you guys because you're in the classroom, you see it, but we want to dive in a little bit more into this, and then what can you do about it? So listen in, guys, because you're not going to want to miss this. Welcome to Behavior Strategies for Class. I am Diane Bachman, your behavior paraprofessional with over 15 years of experience working in special education. And I'm so glad you're here because I'll be teaching you about social emotional learning, behavior strategies, trauma-informed care, and more. So if you are tired of being frustrated and not knowing what to do with your students who have challenging and disruptive behavior, you're in the right place. Now, if you're ready to become more equipped to help your students learn and grow, let's listen in to today's episode. And before we get started, I want to encourage you to hit that subscribe button, share this podcast, this episode with other educators that you know as we continue to learn and grow together. And also, there is a link in the show notes where you can sign up for my newsletter and continue to get tips and more strategies and encouragement as you work through and help these students with these challenging behaviors. So we have definitely seen an increase in these behaviors. So since the pandemic, the disrespect, technology violation, students are behind in their skills of self-regulation and knowing how to build relationships, those social skills. Physical violence has more than doubled and continue to rise since the last 3 to 4 years. And another survey from EAB.com, which is a consulting firm for schools, has found out that 60% of teachers feel pressure to boost lagging academics, leaving no time to address behavior issues, and you're not given any training. And 92% of superintendents says student mental health crisis has worsened since 2019. And they say part of the reason is because of the lack of staff and not having the funding to have more staff. So unfortunately for now, challenging student behavior and all of these interruptions are not going anywhere, right? We see this is especially true with some of the new kindergartners that have come into our program. They don't want to be in class. They run out of the room, blurt out, they throw things across the room. They've hit other students and the adults, of course, all of us staff. And we've also seen this in some of our older students, not knowing how to have social engagement with other peers, how to self-regulate when they're having an emotional outburst, how to come back from all of that. And so we are definitely continuing to teach them the strategies and the skills that they need so that they can succeed while they're in the classroom. And there are some times that we're able to leave them in the classroom and just sit with them and kind of walk them through what's going on. Other times we have to take them out of the classroom, and so they miss even just hearing any of that instructional time. So, which reminds me that the other information I found out is because of these daily interruptions, this can lead up to a loss of instructional time, which could be up to 3 weeks a year. I mean, that is a lot of instruction time, and I know you guys feel that. So at least for us, when our students in the behavior program are struggling, and like I said, if we're able to keep them in the classroom, we want to keep them in your gen ed class because we want them to at least hear what you are teaching. And then, of course, we hear as well. So if we need to sit with them one on one and help them do the work assignment, then we know, what to teach them as well. So it is super important that we try and keep our students in the gen ed class. But if their emotional outbursts are so loud and disruptive where you can't even hear yourself, we are definitely taking those students out. And we have had those incidents definitely more than once where we've had to take our students out. And unfortunately, in some cases, we've had the rest of the class leave the room because we're not able to control this other student when they are having that emotional outburst and control them from affecting everybody else in the room. So at least when the rest of the class can leave, you're able to continue whatever teaching you were doing in a safer place. And so what else can you do about it? So there's evidence-based behavior management, antecedent interventions, the way you set up your class environment, student-centered communication strategies, setting those clear, consistent expectations, giving students voice in behavior reinforcement and strategies. So what does all of that look like, right? So as far as your class environment, they talk about, having those routines, setting those clear expectations, because no matter what, your students, even though they're going to push back on those, they need that. They need that structure in order to feel safe. And when they feel safe, they don't have to keep their guards up, right? They don't have to feel like they're on alert 24/7. And I'm speaking about those students who have some traumatic stress from different experiences they've already been through. And that's even starting, at the kindergarten level, that we've had students like that. And so giving them a safe place, knowing that you're happy to see them as well, that you just greet them when they come in. I mean, that's super important for them as well. What does everything look like? What is the flow of your classroom? I know some teachers are not super structured in this way, and that's okay. Other teachers, they have stations set out, and the students learn, like, this is where we need to be, this is where we can find our pencils, this is where we can get scissors. And so you are not constantly redirecting and directing traffic per se in your room, but they learn where everything is and where everything goes. And that is super important too, because that also gives that structure and that routine of what they can expect while they're in there. The antecedent interventions they talk about is hopefully being able to see when your students are about to have an outburst, or maybe about to interrupt you, or maybe about to get angry, or maybe about to run out of the room. That you want to find out what is that antecedent for that student. And this is going to take time because obviously it's different for everybody, right? Sometimes it's even just the academics. So it could be the reading, a student struggling in reading. And so they freak out when it's time to read because they can't read. Or it's math time, or it's writing, or it's science. I mean, sometimes even just hearing students, oh, this is boring, and then they don't want to do anything. Well, not everything has to be with all the bells and whistles, right? They have to learn. This is part of your learning. This is part of your education. And everybody has to do it, right? No matter where they are in their academic walk, they need to do the work. Obviously, this is why they're there, right? And we sometimes have to remind our students, like, buddy, mom and dad put you on the bus this morning, or mom and dad dropped you off, because they want you to learn and grow. So finding out what is that antecedent for your students. And then, of course, getting assessments done, testing students when you find out where they're really struggling or where their behaviors change, where their interruptions come or their emotional outbursts happen. Is it right before reading? Is it right before science? And then being able to address that and get those interventions in so that they don't have those big emotional outbursts in your classroom. And then the student-centered communication. It's being that empathetic voice, that calm voice. Like, I know, buddy, this is hard. Like, this is something brand new. You never learned it before. So it is going to be hard. But we're going to take it one step at a time. Just kind of coming down on their level, giving that confirmation where you see them, right? You hear them. And then giving them a voice where, okay, so what do you think you need here? Do you need maybe math manipulatives? Do you need your partner, your student, your peer partner to sit with you and, do it together? I find it's really powerful when you have students give a voice to their education. And this also helps on their behaviors, right? What behavior strategies can you teach them? What can they connect with that's going to help them? So do you have maybe a basket of fidgets in your class? Do you give everybody a quiet time where they could maybe draw? Do you have a calm corner in your classroom where they can just go for a couple minutes and refocus and then come back to learning? What are the resources you have available for your students to learn how to self-regulate, to learn how to get those coping skills? Asking them, what could help you calm down when you feel, overwhelmed, stressed out, your body's starting to move, you're starting to feel anxious. Asking them, what do you think could help you? Now, of course, little ones, they may not obviously know the answer to that. And so you could say, okay, well, let's try this time and see if that helps. And it really is sometimes a trial and error, right? Because not every strategy is going to work perfectly for each one of your students that are struggling with some of these behaviors. And then ultimately, if you're able to contact your mental health team, do you have a school counselor, a social worker, a school psychologist, even another behavior team that is able to come in and help reinforce what you are teaching and helping them be able to regulate so that they can do their learning? Another way is those behavior charts, a behavior goal. What are they working on? What can they work on for that week? And helping them see, okay, well, during this time, I really struggle with this. And then that's teaching them how to become self-aware, right? Because sometimes I feel like they're not even realizing that this is the maybe same time every day where they get upset and they get frustrated and they kind of lose it. Or, just teaching how do we interact with each other. I love one of the class charters that one of the classrooms I worked in last year, she would go over that almost every day, every morning, to remind them how they treat each other, how they treat the adults that come into the room, how they use their words and helping and encouraging each other. And that really made such a big difference for their students. So she addressed whatever issues may be going on because, of course, girls and their little cliques already starting, and all the different things. She would address that and then remind them, when you're in class, this is how we treat each other. Maybe it's going over that for everybody, because it's everyone that's going to benefit from this, right? It's not just those who are struggling most or hurting the most that need this, but your whole class can benefit from this. So that's why I encourage you, is there a behavior goal maybe for your whole class that you could work on for 1 week? Or, there's class dojos, there's all kinds of PBIS that you can incorporate as well. And you can check those out too at pbis.org and look at other ways that you can positively reinforce. Another way I've seen teachers positively reinforce the positive behavior is by calling those students out. So you're not constantly calling out the wrong behavior or the disruptive behavior. You're recognizing, oh, Susie, you're doing a great job sitting and looking at me and listening to the lesson. You know, Johnny, you're doing a great job raising your hand when you have a question. So you're ignoring all this other nonsense that the kids are doing and acknowledging those who are doing the right thing at the right time. And that really does seem to make a difference, because then you don't have to even sometimes address those students. They just look around and like, oh, okay, I guess I better sit down, or I guess I better raise my hand. And it's pretty amazing to see that work. I'm not saying that that's going to be the fix-it-all for all of your students, but there's definitely little ways that you can interact and set your classroom up for positive behavior change. So what interventions, or what are you going to try and do next year as you come up with a whole new slew of kids? And you know, some of them are going to be from who are in foster care. Some are going to be in the middle of a parent's divorce. Some are going to have parents who are sick with cancer. Some may be homeless. Some may be neglected. How are you going to be able to meet their needs and incorporate teaching them some of these social skills throughout the year? And I'm not saying this like you're going to come in and you're going to fix everything and everything's going to be peachy keen, because obviously that's not your job, right? You're there to teach with the least amount of interruptions as possible. So I want to encourage you, check out some of these surveys and these research evidence-based strategies, and know that there is hope. As we work together, support each other, encourage each other, you can make a difference in your students' lives. You are making differences in your students' lives. And that's just one step each and every day, one day at a time. And so I want to leave you with this quote: students don't misbehave because they want to piss you off. Most of the time, their behavior is a reflection of the chaos they're experiencing in their lives. And that is from Caboodle. And to remember that there is usually always a why behind their behaviors. And it's not in the what's wrong with that kid. It's in the question of what happened to that student to make them react this way, to make them behave this way. And sometimes it's just they never learn the skills on how to cope. You can do this. So before we finish, also, I wanted to throw in the new segment. And I talked about this last week, and I'm going to be going over like questions of the week. And this one is about how to control blurting. We had a couple students last year who really struggled with this. You know, they want to, obviously share their thoughts. They want to sometimes correct the teacher. They want to make sure people know they're there. And so a few ways that we helped our students control this blurting was by giving them a goal for the day. So let's, we work on 3 blurts, or maybe it's 5 blurts for the day. And we would mark it on their behavior charts. Okay. So once the 5 is done, we give them a positive reinforcement. And that is in behavior. We have, what are they called? They're like goal sheets, and they get like a stamp on them. And once this sheet or this card is filled up, then they get to go to this store and then they get to buy prizes. Another way, certain classrooms have class behavior charts, and so they get to move up or down the chart. But when that student is doing well and they haven't blurted out, say during that one whole lesson, then they tell that student, okay, you get to move up on that behavior chart in the classroom. Another way is reminder cards. So we have visuals that show the students to raise your hand. So instead of just blurting it out, raising your hand and waiting for the teacher to call on you. And that seemed to work well. That one student did not always like that. When they are reminded, you need to raise your hand. And sometimes, obviously, we don't have to verbally remind them. We just point to the visual so that they see they have to raise their hand. Sometimes they still don't like to, but the reminder is there and we keep it on their desk. We usually would tape it to their desk so that even the teacher could walk by and point to that and say, so to remind them, like, you need to raise your hand. So that was a great way to remind them not to blurt out in class. I've also seen other teachers actually mark it on the board. Okay, that's 4. And then that just kind of reminds the student there. It's up to you if you want to put it on the board for everybody. Other times I've seen a chart marked on their desk as well. And you can just put a tally mark. Okay, this is where you're at, buddy. Sometimes we've had students ask for a break. And it's like during that time, it's like, okay, talk about whatever you want. You have 5 minutes, let it all out. And that actually has been helpful for some of our students too. And they just go on talking about whatever it is. Minecraft. One of our students loved Pac-Man. He would talk about Pac-Man, for 5 minutes. And then it's like, okay, now it's time to get back to focus on your work and back to class. And remember, and just remind him before he gets back in class, you need to raise your hand before you talk. So those are a few ways that we've helped our students control their blurting. Which one are you going to try this year with your students who love to blurt out? So thanks so much, guys. I will see you next week. This has been very interesting. And remember, there is hope. You are making a difference, and your students need you each and every day. So thanks so much, guys. I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate your support. And if I have encouraged you, motivated you to continue to learn, to support your students, even better, to help them strive in your classroom, please leave a review, hit that subscribe button so that others can see they can learn and grow here as well. Thank you.